Hello, podcast listeners. Thank you for tuning into GrowCast today. Jordan River here, back with part 2 of my interview with Shane from MIGRO. This part is awesome, guys. We talk about light spectrum and we get into a bunch of stuff before then jumping into the specifics about the tests that he's done on different brands of LED lights and beyond. So yeah, some really cool stuff, and I especially appreciate him going over these unbiased results of the tests that he's done on LED lights. So, we don't have any sponsors today, but I do want to make sure you know about some stuff on our end. Make sure you're following us on Instagram. We're almost to our mark of 3,333. We're giving away 3 months free in the Grow Pass membership program just for following us. So check out our Instagram page. Look for the Larry Bird post. That'll give you all the rules. And win yourself a free membership. Also, make sure to check out our merch page, growcastpodcast.com. Click merch. I believe there's still a sale running. There was one, so check it out. And even if there's not a sale running, grab a mug if you want it, guys. Grab a shirt, grab a hat. The hats are really nice. Growcastpodcast.com. Check out the merch button. Okay, let's jump in with Shane without further ado. Thank you all so much for listening. I hope you have a wonderful weekend. Enjoy the show, guys. Hello, podcast listeners. You are now listening to GrowCast. I'm your host, Jordan River, and I want to thank you for tuning in today. We have back on the line for part 2. Shane from MIGRO LED is on the line all the way from across the pond. How you doing, Shane?
Very good, Jordan. Nice of you to have me back. Thank you.
Of course, my friend. Of course. I'm excited to speak with you. Really cool stuff you got going on at MIGRO on YouTube for you guys who are interested in light testing and LEDs. Just give a quick brief rundown of what you do with MIGRO.
Yeah, so it's a grow lighting channel, and we try to cover all grow lighting relevant topics, such as grow light spectrum, how to size your grow light. What's quite popular as well is that we do grow light reviews. The manufacturers send us grow lights, and we test them in the same way each time so that you can have a comparison of different grow lights. So we test them for efficiency and spectrum and all that kind of stuff.
Nice. Making sure they do what they say they're doing.
Exactly, yeah.
And I'm excited to get into all of these tests specifically. Why don't we just start talking about spectrums really quick? Before we get started, real quick, listeners, I'm all over the place this morning. Subscribe, share the show, make sure you're doing a rating and review. We appreciate that. But I wanted to talk about spectrums first, my friend, specifically HID versus LED and kind of where we're at in that. I don't like to consider it, like a battle or some sort of argument, but a lot of people like to pick one side and stick to it. You know what I mean?
They do, yeah.
And I would also say that LED has been on the coattails catching up for quite some time, So I want to see where in your mind the current state of HID versus LED is.
Okay. So let's start from the start. So for all the old school people out there, they started off on using metal halide mainly for vegging, and they then switched over to high pressure sodium for flowering. And the reason they did that was because metal halide has it's a cooler white color. That means it's got more blue in it, and more blue plants are responsive to the amount of blue in the spectrum. HPS only has about 3%. Metal halide have about 23%. So metal halide, with that high level of blue, it promotes short and dense growth. So blue affects plants in their growth. It affects their what's called cellular expansion. But in simple terms, they grow with shorter internodal distances, and that's the distances between branches. And that means if you grow, if everything else is equal, if you grow with the metal halide light, you'll get shorter, denser plants than you will with high pressure sodium.
Right. We don't want them to stretch all out and get all spindly in veg.
Absolutely. So at the end of the veg cycle, what we want is as large a plant as possible during that period. But we also want them to be short and compact. So that because we're in an indoor environment, we don't want them growing very, very tall because we don't have the room, and we don't want them spreading out too much because we're restricted in terms of our grow area as well. So metal halide was used. Now, metal halide is less efficient than high pressure sodium. And so when it came to the flowering period, we switched over to high pressure sodium. The plants are not as likely to stretch in that phase. They usually will a little bit.
Yeah. Especially in the beginning there. And I'd imagine that has to do with both the growth cycle and switching to HPS if you are in fact under these HIDs.
Exactly. But I've seen recent experiments done on cannabis plants done by a very important person in the grow lighting world called Dr. Bruce Bugbee. And Dr. Bruce Bugbee has just released public information showing cannabis plants grown through the flowering cycle. So they were vegged under the same spectrum, but under the flowering cycle with lots of different choices of spectrum in terms of percentage blue, and they all grew pretty much the same.
Oh, interesting.
So he was demonstrating that in the flower cycle, the plant is not as responsive to this quantity of blue in the spectrum. So that's where we came from, and it worked very well. High pressure sodium is very efficient from a photon point of view. Mm-hmm. It's cheap, great product. When we got LEDs, though, we first of all we got the opportunity to vary the spectrum.
Right.
So with metal halide and high pressure sodium,
it is what it is. Yeah, you got a glass full of gas, and whatever it's charged, you get that color. Now with LED, my understanding is you can taint the crystal, or you can taint the silicon crystals and make the holes different sizes, and that all affects the color.
You can have any spectrum you want pretty much within the power range, and the power range is the range of light that plants will respond to and grow to. And it's similar to the visual spectrum. PAR is defined as from 400 nanometers or deep blue right through the spectrum, like the rainbow spectrum, up to a deep red at 700 nanometers. And so LEDs, we're looking at LED manufacturers, and people were experimenting with different grow light spectrum to see if there was efficiencies that they could gain by only using certain type of spectrum,
right?
And also to see could they change the way the plant develops, such as putting more energy into flowering, for example, or into flowers. So that those type of characteristics, they tested to see could they manipulate the plant growth in any kind of way. And that these experiments have been underway pretty much since LEDs have become widely available and economic. But I have to say, in the last couple of years, a lot of the real sort of deeper, broader, more thorough research has been coming through from various sort of universities and groups, showing the subtleties of these variations.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so there's recent studies. I was at a conference there just last month, in fact, where, for example, commercial growers for all different plants now, this would be bedding plants and flowering plants and stuff, not necessarily cannabis, but they would have been looking at for example, at the effects of far red in either inhibiting or promoting when a plant flowers. So there's also, I've been doing a series, as you know, Jordan, we spoke about it last time, on UV. And I've just been over with a grower in the UK who grows what they call industrial hemp, which is basically growing weed for CBD.
Right.
And they've been experimenting with UVA and B to enhance the potency, so the percentage of CBD.
Are they having good success with that?
Yeah, they are. Yeah. Their initial experiments, it depends on strain. It depends on the quantity of UV that they expose the plants to.
Right, I imagine so.
They begin at anywhere from 0% change with some strains to 40% improvement in potency in others.
Wow.
There's these experiments are showing that differences in grow light spectrum can result in different types of growth characteristics.
Right. Is that why, when LED was kind of first kicking on, we saw those blurple lights? It's like they were trying to mix red and blue. And then I feel like now, correct me if I'm wrong, they've kind of moved towards a more universal white light, a brighter, more, I don't know if you want to say traditional, like normal light colored to visible light.
So really their problem, well, not their problem, the way they approached grow lighting solutions with LEDs in the early days was they had efficient blue LEDs and efficient red LEDs. They were available on the market. And so that's what they used. And they didn't have green LEDs that were efficient that they could put in there, because if you added all them together, you would get white. And they did not have the efficient white LEDs that are on the market today. So the COBs and what are commonly called quantum boards,
right?
Which is the LEDs basically with that sort of orangey egg yolk type finish on the surface. Those LEDs only really became efficient enough to use in grow lighting maybe 4 or 5 years ago.
Oh, interesting.
And so now red and blue LEDs, they grow plants fine. They don't miss green. There's not a lower quality of product from a red and blue only LED than from one with white light.
Oh.
Plants are not that fussy, to be honest. They don't really care if it's a green photon, for example, or a red photon. They will absorb them at slightly different rates.
Uh-huh.
So red is slightly more efficient in terms of photosynthesis than green. But there are benefits of green. For example, if you have green, you'll have a white light and you'll be able to see your plants. And, for growers, that's a really important feature of the light, because under the blurple lights, it's very hard to see the condition and health of your plants. Mm-hmm. So using white light has multiple benefits. Green light can penetrate the spectrum, penetrate the canopy. So the green light does bounce around a little bit inside the canopy, but it also has been proven to penetrate deeper into the leaf structure and use photosynthetic material in the leaf that other
spectrums don't. Wow.
Exactly. So, but these are in small degrees, Jordan.
Right.
There's this sort of belief, and I get the sense when I'm talking to people online and I'm answering questions about spectrum, that people believe that somewhere out there's a magic formula for spectrum.
A secret spectrum, yeah.
Yeah. So if I talk about power, there's two. I'd like to distinguish between the quantity of light and the quality of the light.
Sure.
And the more light, more growth. Okay.
Right.
So if I get a blurple light or a white light or a HPS or a metal halide, doesn't matter which. If I give it 1,000 photons of light of each of those, it'll pretty much grow 1 unit of plant.
Wow.
So 1 gram or 1 ounce or whatever you want to call it. So that'll be fairly similar. What's different is though the way the plant develops.
Right.
So the way I try to explain it is, how much light means how much plant. What spectrum means what kind of plant, as in, is it going to be tall or short? Is the main two characteristics. But There are some other little ones, like there might be enhanced oil production, for example, with some spectrum, or there might be a little earlier or later flowering with some spectrum. So there's the main thing is just your simple horsepower. How much power are you getting to your plant canopy?
Right.
That's going to determine most things. And then secondarily is, do you have a spectrum appropriate to the task? And so back to the metal halide situation, in veg, with cannabis, you'd prefer a higher portion of blue. And in flower, you're less concerned about the blue portion.
Right.
So you'd likely use more red, because red is a little bit more efficient.
Well, okay. So let me ask you a couple. I'm going to kind of spit out the common consensuses that I've been hearing around the grow world, and you tell me if they're accurate or not. You
Okay.
mentioned oil expression. My understanding is that HPS, while it does really succeed with that yield and it's very efficient in the light that it puts out, my understanding is that if you switch to a CMH, for instance, you might get, first of all, less stacked and blocky flowers, but also I've heard you get a little bit more terpene production, you get a little bit more maybe potency from these CMH spectrums, which my understanding is a little bit more red. Is that the case?
Well, so the evidence is there is not a huge amount of evidence of any
Interesting.
of this. So
That's the anecdotal consensus, man. Let me just tell you from being on all these
oh, it
forums and
is.
talking
Yeah,
to
yeah,
growers.
yeah. Absolutely, absolutely. And I agree with you that is the consensus.
But scientifically, we're waiting.
Yeah, basically. So, like, I would not. So, on my Grow channel, for example, I don't say anything unless I know it to be, as far as I can understand, I know it to be true. And I know it to be true not by theory or by opinion,
right,
but by experiment.
Study, exactly, science.
Yeah. So, I've seen there's some growers out there are in the position to get cannabis tested, for example.
Right.
And I have seen tests of tables of clones, one side done with HPS, the other done with CMH. And they're roughly the same amount of light shining on each. But I have to say, with my grow lighting knowledge, I've looked at them and said, they haven't really determined that is exactly the case.
Interesting.
So they haven't cut out that variable. And then they've gone and tested it and proven that CMH, or shown that when they sampled the CMH side, they've seen slightly higher THC production, for example. That's it's a little bit of evidence, but it's not what I'd call conclusive evidence.
Right, especially with all the variables, all the insane variables that come with growing.
Yeah. So, I've seen some stuff like that, and it's like growers doing great stuff, sharing what they've been experimenting with themselves. But as I said to you, there is a recent experimentation done in Utah University, I think it is, where this guy Bruce Bugby is, with some of his colleagues, and they tested in controlled environments. They tested cannabis plants. Now they were CBD producing varieties, but it's the same. It's more or less the same thing with CBD and THC. They tested the THC as well. They're just CBD dominant. But anyway, they tested these plants under a range of spectrum, quite dramatically different spectrum, and they tested, as I said, the dry mass of the plant, the mass of the flower production, and they also tested THC concentration, and it was exactly the same in all of them.
Wow.
So now that's for a particular strain, okay? So
right, in a particular grow.
Yeah, exactly. Well, they had their scientists, their professors, all this kind of stuff. They're horticultural scientists, but that is the best evidence I've seen that spectrum is not critical, as in this is within the normal power range. UV wasn't used, but it's not critical in flowering.
That is so fascinating, man. And here's my question to you, even if these different gas bulbs are great for this or that, I'm sure you're just looking at LED as the future, because you theoretically can achieve all of this and more as the technology develops and progresses, right?
Yeah, well, really, the benefit of LED now these days is that if you take the efficiency of an LED system versus a HID system, HPS or whatever, HPS is still much, much cheaper up front to cover the same area with the same quantity of light.
Right.
LED is still about 3 times that amount, 3 or 4 times that amount. But if you look at the other costs, so the running costs, and then the costs of, for example, the excess heat generated by HID, and replacing your bulbs, and all that stuff, you find that if you buy an LED, it'll pay you back the initial investment in about 3 years, 2 to 3 years, depending on the system. And most growers are in it for, they're committed and they want to get those benefits of a lower footprint so they want lower energy consumption in their house. They don't want as big a load on their domestic system.
Yes. Yeah.
Usually for they want to be as secretive as they can be about what they're doing. And the other thing then, of course, is that we've all done it. We've battled through the heat of summer, trying to keep a grow room at less than 30 degrees when it's nearly 30 in the greater environment.
Oh, yeah, man, that's tough with HPS. Those things get hot as heck. If you got a couple of those in there, yeah.
Yeah, so your payback period shortens again when you're running AC, trying to keep your lights going through the summer. So, experienced growers have battled through this, and they are, they're appreciative of the benefits of LED. Let's put it that way.
Totally.
That's just purely energy consumption and efficiency. What we're all playing around with now and looking for sort of silver bullets, but we're looking for
sure,
good solutions in spectrum.
Just that right mix. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's seeing if you tweak the spectrum, do you get further benefits from LED just beyond the efficiency?
Yeah, totally. I'm so excited to see how this, progresses here. You've already kind of dispelled some misconceptions, like you said, the quality versus quantity of light. But do you have any other things that we might be getting wrong about lights when we're thinking about them?
I suppose there's a couple of things. I think I touched on this the last time. First of all, when you're going to get a grow light, if you're buying it from a manufacturer that understands grow lighting in any way, they're likely to have got the spectrum okay. And really then, it's I suppose it's giving the assurance to starter growers. It's cool to get just a cheap light, okay? When you're starting. And I say that because people get a bit wound up about, lights are really expensive and it's all really expensive. And I prefer people to be growing with a relatively low performance than not growing at all.
Yeah, totally. So, I love that.
Don't be put off by, some of the expense, including my ones, by the way. So MIGRO LEDs are an expensive light. They will pay back. They're high quality build and all of that. But to get you started, you could spend maybe a third of what you'd spend on my starter light and just get going.
Right.
And if you know that you're into doing this and you're committed for a relatively long time, I would say, there's probably benefits in buying a better light and investing up front. And it's just a simple thing of don't buy twice, for the same thing. But it's to take away the sort of concern and fear and worry about buying a cheap light.
Right.
Go onto my channel, have a look. You'll see I recommend inexpensive lights all the time, which will do what they say they're going to do. They'll last pretty long, and it'll get you up and running.
So useful, man. What you're doing for the community.
And LED panels are great for that because yourself with HPS. They are a little bit off-putting, with the starters and the
the ballast and totally.
Yeah. And the noise that comes out of them, and the heat of the bulb, and I spent the first few years worrying about my house burning down,
right?
So it's they're not. They can take a little bit of getting used to, I suppose. Whereas the LEDs are less intimidating. And they also come in a lot more sort of shapes and sizes, particularly for smaller growers.
Totally. Yeah, I think that's why they're the future, man. I think that's where everything's headed, man. I can't imagine that we're going to be nailing up ballasts for much longer.
Yeah, well, the thing is, HPS is still a very good technology. Mm-hmm. Like the efficiency of a HID system is 1.5 micromoles per watt. That's better than a lot of the cheaper LEDs out there in the market. That's 1,000 watt HPS is. That's cheaper than a lot of the LEDs out there in the market. The problem is not everybody wants to start with 1,000 watts HPS. You get to the smaller HPS systems, like the 150 watt, they're less efficient. They're about 1.1 micromoles.
Interesting. Per watt. Now, I was always a fan of that Euro style. I had the 600s. I had a really good time with the 600 watt HPSs personally. How does that fare energy wise?
600 watt. Yeah, you get to about 1.3 micromoles per watt hitting the grow area with a digital ballast Oh, by the way, HID bulbs, HPS bulbs, all pretty much the same in terms of output. So,
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, you don't. A lot of people talk. They talk about they have this special HPS bulb.
Sure.
They don't.
You call bullcrap on that?
Oh yeah.
I love it.
Like I've tested probably 15 different 600 watt HPS bulbs, and I haven't been able to detect a difference in output.
Oh my God, I love that. That's incredible.
So it's within a few percent. So now, if you buy a cheap one, the construction or the build quality might be terrible.
Yeah, it might crap out on you. That's true. You might. Yeah, that's a good point. But still, that's pretty.
You're not likely to get more output from one over the other.
That is interesting, man. That's good to know. I like that a lot.
So you're about 1.3 for that system, digital, regular HPS bulb, and as you say, an eco or Euro or barn reflector. They're called many different things. So that's 1.3. To put it in perspective, my LEDs and the highest end LEDs are at a 2 or a 2.2, so about 50% more efficient, which is great, but it's not. They're in the same ballpark.
Sure.
Let's put it that way.
I like that, man. I like that honest assessment.
Yeah. So, So the perfectly good solutions, HID, LED are should be looked at relative to those, because HID is a good starting point. And if you're looking for high efficiency LED, it's useful just to check on those specifications. So to look at the efficiency of the system output. So how much light does it get down onto the grow area? And that's the measure, or that's how I test all of the lights on the grow channel. I put them into a reflective environment. I hang them at their optimum height. I plug in a parameter to see how much they're drawing from the wall. And I measure in sort of a grid. I measure the grow light canopy. It's a simulation of a grow light canopy.
Right.
But I measure how much light is reaching that canopy for each grow light system.
All right, guys, no sponsor today, but I want to make sure that you know about MyGrowPass.com and everything that you've been missing out on with our membership program if you haven't already joined. I'll try to make this quick because it's a long list of benefits you get, because that's what we wanted to do. We wanted a multifaceted membership program. So MyGrowPass.com, here's what you get. Member Podcast drops once a week. That's right. It's an extra episode of Growcast, but it's ad-free, and it's usually me and Wolfman or me and Travers, and we're rapping about growing once a week. If you can't get enough Growcast, that's perfect for you. The discount program is amazing. You've heard all the amazing sponsors we have, like Fish Shit Microbial Products, Dr. Zyme's Pest Eliminator, Cultilux CMH Grow Lights, Gorilla Grow Tents. Well, our members save exclusive discounts on those products, up to 25% you can save, guys. Sweet Leaf Nutrients, Sohum Living Soils, Rooted Life CBD products. You get a ton of exclusive discounts, and you'll save hundreds with the program. You also get entered into the giveaway just by being a member, and we're giving away each quarter a grow light, a grow tent, a bunch of soil, a bunch of nutrients to 5 lucky members. It's incredible what's going down with the giveaway. And also check out the archived content from, you got years of Growcast episodes from years past, and also the cultivation resources. Guys, it's too much to say in an ad, so check it out, mygrowpass.com. Check it out today. Go sign up. The discounts pays for itself. You'll love it. mygrowpass.com, everybody. Okay, let's get back to Shane from MIGRO.
It's so cool, man. Let's move on to these. I want to talk about your specific tests. Can we go through these brands? First of all, do you ever feel bad about we'll get into some of these that kind of failed the test, but I'm surprised to see how you feel about. You said some companies send you these lights and say, "Hey, test us."
Yeah. So what I used to do in the early days of the channel, when I was getting started, what I was trying to do is I was trying to sell my lights basically, and.
Right.
People were saying they're very expensive, and I'm going, yes, they are compared to lower performance lights, but there's a reason, higher quality, higher efficiency. And the only way I could really communicate that effectively, I thought, was to compare one light against the other.
Test it on the internet, man. That's the only way people are going to believe you.
Yes. So it's like somebody saying, is a Ford better than a Ferrari or whatever the hell? It's like, get it on the road, race them side by side.
Nice.
Let's sort them out. So I started doing that, and then up to about last year, I was buying lights and basically selling them on and buying them, testing them, selling them on. And it got to the point where a couple of manufacturers were starting to pick at the tests and saying, "Oh, we don't agree that you're
Oh boy.
stuff like that." And to be honest, I got a bit nervous because I didn't want to get struck off YouTube or Instagram,
Right.
because people were upset with me. So I just said, look, I'm not going to test any more competitors' lights unless they send them to me in the full knowledge of what I'm going to do, So
Right.
everybody that's watched my channel can see what I'm going to do with the light, how I'm going to test it, how I'm going to assess it, how I'm going to mark it, basically score it. And so anybody who sends me a light knows that in advance, and therefore they should not be able to, or they shouldn't be upset or disappointed with the outcome.
I like it, man. I like it a lot.
So now I have a lot of lights here to test at the moment. I'm not really looking for any more, so I'm not actively searching for people's lights to test, but people do send them in to me. So I have Chinese manufacturers, for example, contacting me almost daily.
Whoa, that's cool.
I have people. So I just did one on Amazon. Typical common lights from Amazon. They were all sent to me. And I also get lights from manufacturers that are very confident in their performance, I have companies which send me the lights that are confident that they're going to test well, and therefore they're delighted for me to publish, their real world performance.
So cool, man. Let's talk about some of the bigger brands, if you don't mind me just asking how these tests went. Maybe you can give a quick rundown. And of course, listeners, go to MIGRO so you can see all the tests. But I'm going to jump around here because I want to make sure we have time. I know you did the Viper Spectra tests. Now, I've been looking at these lights for some time, seeing how cheap they are, seeing people complain about them, seeing some people succeed well with them. Tell me about how that Viper Spectra test went down.
Yeah, so remember I was saying that there's a place for every light? Well, I might have an exception here. So the reason is for the price bracket. So they are a budget light. They're not an expensive light. But for the price bracket, they're the worst performing light I've ever tested. So
wow.
Viper Spectra are particularly poor. I did a test. It's on. I put it up there only about 3 weeks ago, and they achieved a 0.94 ppft per watt output. And 0.94 is, as I said, it's the lowest, I think, performing LED I've tested.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's brutal.
So just to give an example, the one I recommended in that series of testing, I did a Viper Spectra, a Flyzon, I think they're pronounced, a Roliadro, and a Metzi, Meizhi. Again, I think that's how you pronounce it. The Metzi was, I think, cheaper, or at least very similar, and that was a 1.23 ppf.
Oh, wow.
So it's about 30% more efficient. And it had, remember I was talking about spectrum, the Viper Spectra, I'm just looking up here because I don't want to make a mistake on air.
No problem, yeah.
Yeah, the Viper Spectra had a high level of, an unnecessarily high level of blue in the spectrum.
And that would make sense as to why it was less efficient then.
It would be part of the story, yeah. But you just don't need it. I think it was 50% blue in the spectrum, and you just don't need that.
Interesting.
You wouldn't really need more than 20% for any grow light that's full spectrum that's going through the whole grow cycle.
Right.
So what that indicates to me is Viper Spectra don't really know what they're doing.
Oh boy.
Do you know what I mean?
I do know what you mean, man. I mean, you just laid it out pretty well over the last half hour, and then you say half our spectrum is blue. That's a pretty damning picture. So how did the other ones come out? You said the Metzi did the best at 1.2 something? Yeah, the Metzi was 1.23. So as a combination of sort of build quality, efficiency, and spectrum, the Metzi was pretty good. For these budget lights. Yeah, like the Metzi is 140 watts. Let me just double check.
The Meti was 170 watts and certainly less than $100.
Oh, wow.
So like it's, that's a decent amount of wattage. It's got a pretty sensible spectrum. I think it's about 20% blue or 25% blue, which is sensible enough. And it is a reasonable build quality, and it has quite a good spread. So it was, like I'd highly recommend that for starter.
I love that as far as a budget light goes. Now, we're already going to get off track here, but I have to ask you, have you tried these quantum boards? You mentioned them before. Everybody's going nuts over these Meiju quantum boards that everybody's having great success with. What do you think of those?
They're excellent.
Wow.
They're really, really good. I have some caveats to that, but
hit me.
The format is, for anybody that doesn't know, if they know the LED panel lights, so you have a box and you have lots and lots of little LEDs on a PCB, on an aluminium plate. They've taken away all the boxes and the fans from around them, and you basically just get the aluminium plate with the LEDs mounted on it. And they're very light, they're very efficient. So a lot of them use Samsung LEDs, which are highly efficient. They're white light, so they're full spectrum. They have all the constituents of the spectrum.
That's what they look like.
So you can see the plants very well under the light as well. They're very low profile, so in small micro grows, you don't have to have a lot of height above the plants to fit the light, which is excellent. They're economic to build, and so they're being sold at very good prices for their efficiency. So for that, you're getting efficiency on those models up to 2.2 ppft per watt, which is that's killer. That's the best on the market at the moment.
Wow.
There are some downsides. They're not massive downsides, but there are some. So they're kind of early development product, and quite a lot of them, like I've got ones here to test, and they're just not a finished commercial product, I would say. So they've got kind of wires coming out that you have to connect up with terminal blocks and stuff like that, some of them. The LEDs, for example, are not protected, so there's no screen over them, like an acrylic screen or whatever.
Oh, yeah, that could be a problem if you're working around dirt. Are you worried about like dust floating up and getting stuck in there and stuff?
Yeah, again, this is not, I'm not dissing them. They're very good in terms of value for money. They're highly efficient.
You got to give us the whole picture here. That's all right. You can, you can talk about the downsides.
I would just say, most of these lights are good for 10 years, and, they can operate for 10 years, and they probably will. If you don't have a cover on them, you'll get a little bit more efficiency because you're not like blocking out some of the light from a bit of acrylic sheet. So you usually lose maybe 5% light or something with an acrylic sheet. So that's a downside, but your light is much more likely to last its full lifetime if it's protected.
Right.
So but what I would say is that they will be getting better. Like people will be refining the product and making it more robust for the garden environment, I hope, over time. It's just that it's only really been out maybe a year and a half, 2 years, those products, so they're still sort of in development.
Love it, man. That's a really good overview. Very unbiased of you. Let's see. Let's move on to some of these other brands. Mars LED. How did Mars do?
Yeah, so Mars I've had mixed relationship with. So Mars were one of the lights that I bought. I bought them initially and tested them, and they didn't like my testing. Then they decided that they did like my testing, and they sent me lights, and then I tested those lights, and they didn't like the test I did. But I think
did they not like the test results? Is that what happened, Shane?
Again, there was a little bit of they didn't understand the test, I think. Well, when I say that, the marketing people that I was in contact with, the European marketing people, weren't fully aware of what I was going to do, I think, and it caught them a bit off guard. But
what could you possibly be doing that's freaking them out? You're not hitting the thing with a bat or anything. You're just testing the par.
Yeah. Well, what you see, what they quote on their website is called their ppf per watt, and that means the output of the lighting system per watt. And what they didn't quote what I was testing is the amount that gets down to the grow area.
I see. So those are two different things there.
Yeah, so it's the light output efficiency or the fixture output efficiency, and then it's the system efficiency.
I see.
When you put it in a tent and you got reflective walls and you hang it at a certain height, how much gets down there. So anyway, we had a bit of a head-to-head about that. But anyway, they have been coming out with some quite innovative lights recently. They used to just do the fan box blurple lights.
Right.
One slightly better than the other, but nothing particularly good. They then have come out with two lights in the last in this year in 2019, which are very, very a very good development. First one is the Mars SP250, and that's like a big long bar light. So I think it's at least 3 foot long. I think it's purpose designed for a 4x2, and it's I think it's 200. I think the 250 is 250 watts. Yeah, it's either 250 or 200 watt model. In any case, it's passive cooled. It's got white light coming out of it.
Everyone's switching to this white light then, it seems.
Yeah, it's so the best Mars Hydro I ever tested before that was at about 1.4 ppfd output per watt. This one is up to 1.8.
Oh, nice.
So it's significantly better. And in terms of sort of dollar per power output, it's a very good value light.
Nice.
Whenever I post stuff on Mars, I do get slightly worryingly every, sort of 1 in 10 commenter will go, "They're terrible, don't touch them, I had a terrible experience." For every 9 that goes, "I use them and they're great." So I never really know. There seems to be some reliability and customer service issues with them at times.
Interesting.
But the most people seem to be happy with it.
I love it. That's a great overview, and they're stepping up their game, is what you're saying. Their recent stuff is where it's at.
Yeah. And they have another one. They have another format. Again, I reviewed it only a few months ago. I gave it a glowing review, I thought, and I've forgotten the bloody name, but so I'm just looking at my YouTube channel to try and. The TS1000, the TS series.
I see.
So
and you're happy with those as well.
Yeah, again, they're quite lightly manufactured. Their LED driver, which can be a critical component for reliability, is a no-name driver. So I have no history to base or history to gauge reliability for that model on. But in terms of the format and the performance, they're excellent, and the price is excellent.
Nice.
The efficiency is better than average. It's not top of the line, but it's good. So, let's see about reliability. Hopefully we'll get some comments in. People might tell us how they're getting on.
I would love to hear that, guys. Just write in. I know that you LED users have thoughts on all these brands. So write in, let us know what's up. Contact at growcastpodcast.com or get at us on Instagram. And of course, find MIGRO on YouTube. How did Kind LED do, Shane? I've seen Kind around for quite some time.
Okay, so first caveat is I haven't tested. I tested the Kind K. I'm going back on the YouTube channel again. Trying to remember. Anyway, it was at least 2 years ago. It was the last time I tested a Kind. This was their box type LED. And it was the K series. I don't think they've been upgraded since. I've seen nothing to indicate that they have been, and their performance was really, really bad.
Oh boy! So stay away from Kind, in your opinion.
And what's most extraordinary to me is their performance. So their performance is 1.17 micromoles per watt for that series. It was the XL750 was the last one I tested, but that was like their flagship model at the time. And it was less efficient than HID,
Yikes.
Than HPS, so it was really poor. And man, they're expensive.
Right.
Like how they're getting, I shouldn't say too much, but yeah.
How they're getting that low score with those expensive components is beyond you. That was the sentence you were just about to say, right?
I couldn't quite possibly say that.
Sorry about that. I have to finish people's sentences. I had to get it out there, Shane. Okay, that's really interesting because I know they're kind of a more expensive, not exactly your budget light. And after your tests, maybe go a different
you know
direction.
what? I'm gonna say what I think. Why not? They're all marketing. They're all glitz and glam. The lights look great, but the components are terrible.
Oh, damn.
So
Man.
I'm just gonna say it as it is. They can
I love it.
sue me.
I love it, man. This is one of my favorite interviews. I love talking to you. Let's end with, we're actually coming to the top of the hour here. Let's end with these Chinese LEDs. Now, I know you've tested several, and the one I saw just simply said China LED test. What about these LEDs coming out of China that you're testing? What are your thoughts in general? What do you like? What do you not like?
Yeah, so just to say, the reason I called it a Chinese LED test was not because everything comes out of China is rubbish or anything like that. My heat sinks come from China. My drivers come from Hong Kong. My LEDs are made by Luminous, an American company who make their LEDs in China. Okay, so
right.
You
got nothing about China. You got nothing against China. Your bread is buttered in China.
Exactly, and nearly every regarding LEDs. It's very hard to buy an LED that's not made in China. Okay, so and the same goes for the transformers or the drivers.
Right.
And they pretty much cornered the whole market there. So
wow,
it's and if you look at the highest quality components that we purchase for ourselves, like iPhones or iPads or any of those things, they're all made in China. So
yeah.
I'm not being drawn.
You're not disparaging them. Yeah, we get that.
The reason I called it a Chinese light was because it had no other marking on it.
Right. I was going to say, was it just like a brandless, like?
Yeah, it just said like LED light made in China.
That's awesome.
It's not. It said something about wattage or something on it, but which was inaccurate as far as I can remember. But so I just called it. I didn't know what else to call it, so that's what I called it. But,
okay. So
we have to be careful not to use too broad a brush because it's just not appropriate. It just damns the good or praises the poor ones.
Yeah, this is just one manufacturer, but I thought it was interesting the way I saw it. So how did it go?
That light was okay. It was so cheap that it's back to my earlier discussion about METC and what other those things. If you're starting off and you're either going for a short period of time or you just don't want to spend too much money up front, they're great lights to buy.
$90? I mean, come on, how can you beat that?
Exactly. So what I would say is try and find somebody, like the MIGRO channel or somewhere else that's at least grown with them and who is not sponsored.
Right.
So because I've seen it proven that kind LEDs are amazing grow lights, and I know they aren't.
Right.
I've seen lots of things proven, quote, I'm doing air quotes here on radio,
right.
but, it's being proven that they're great lights, or somebody has told everybody that they're great lights, but they're not. Photons don't lie, if you measure the problem is light power meters cost a lot of money.
Right.
They're $300 or $400 each. So people generally don't expend that amount of money to check their light to make sure
exactly.
It is.
Yes. That's, you could get a whole new light for that. So
exactly. So generally, it's hard. What I would say is try and look for as I said, a manufacturer that uses decent quality components. So if they're specifying the brand of LED driver like Meanwell or something like that, a well-known driver, that's a good start. If they're specifying the LEDs that they're using, so they're Samsung or Cree or Luminous or whatever, that's another good start. But really and also if they have extensive power data relative to their light. And what I mean by that is not just a single point measurement directly underneath the center of the light. So saying, we get 1,000 power under this light, but it's only a point measurement. But to try and find them where they show the spread of light over an area and give you multiple measurements of the light over the target grow area, the specified grow area.
So if they're giving out more information, it's usually a sign that they know a little bit more.
Yeah, and they're confident in putting it out there and sharing it with you. The less information, the more suspicious. Like, so lots of people ask me about, is this a good light? I go online and have a look at the website and I go, I can't tell, because they're not saying how their light performs.
Right.
And therefore I can't recommend it, because they don't, it'd be like buying a car.
It doesn't tell you if it's a V8 or a V6.
Yeah, or doesn't tell you what miles per gallon or kilometers per year it does. You'd be like, why are you not telling me that?
Right, raise an eyebrow to that. Exactly.
Yeah, it's generally not going to be good news if people are hiding stuff from you. So, and the real proof is in the pudding. So if you can find a light that's being reviewed, that you've got, as I said, non-sponsored reviews of by non-sponsored growers who've used them over a period of time and hopefully are able to compare them against other lights. So all that sort of feeds into your buying process, and should help you make the right decision.
Man, I love it, Shane. This is such a good overview. I feel like you have provided a very unbiased, and I think that's what people probably like about your channel, man, is like you said, you're not affiliated. You're just trying to do this work for the community. Definitely proving out some of your own concepts. And I urge people to go support MIGRO. But you're doing a lot for the community, man. So thank you so much for doing what you're doing.
I appreciate it. When I started this company, it was on the back of my own experience. And my own experience was being ripped off another number of times when I bought lights.
Right.
So, I can sort of accept criticism that, I'm just an idiot, or, I don't know what I'm talking about, or, my lights are expensive or something like that. But the last thing I want said about me is that I'm trying to deceive people, because I specifically got into this game to try and be a counterbalance to that approach in the industry, and to try and provide an alternative which is at least a trustworthy source.
I love it, man. I think we support you here at GrowCast, and I think my listeners are going to jump on board too. So everybody check out MIGRO, MIGRO, on YouTube. Go subscribe right now. Go check it out. You're going to love watching this stuff while you're in your grow room, guys. MIGRO. Shane, thank you so much for doing this, man. Really appreciate it. I know it's probably evening time where you are, so I'll let you go. Man, I just can't thank you enough. This was really wonderful.
It's a pleasure. Anytime in the future, I'd be delighted to be on. To come back to you. I love the channel. Since I've heard about you, I've been going into the back catalogs whenever I come up to a topic I'm interested in, and I found a range of topics that you're covering and the people that you're getting on to talk about them really extensive and really interesting, and formatted really well. So really enjoyed it.
Appreciate it, man. Appreciate it so much, Shane. Everybody listening, follow at GrowCast on Instagram for the show. Follow at Jordan River IG. You got an Instagram, any social you want to promote, Shane?
Yeah, Instagram, it's at MIGROLight. Same hook as the YouTube channel.
Perfect. Go subscribe, everybody. Give them a follow. This is Shane from MIGRO and Jordan River signing off, wishing you the best of luck in your grow. Take care, everybody. Thank you so much for listening. Be safe and grow smarter.
All right, everyone, that's the show for today. Hope you enjoyed it. I know I enjoyed speaking to Shane, truly one of the most enlightening guests I've had on in quite some time. Shout out to Start to Finish for all your consulting needs. Start the number 2 Finish 710 on Instagram. Jay Blanked did the beat for the ads. Check them out at soundcloud.com/JBlanked. What else we got? Just the membership program at mygrowpass.com. Merch at growcastpodcast.com. Click merch. That's it, guys. I hope you enjoyed this expose into lighting that we've done the past few weeks, and there will be more ahead. So thank you all so much for listening. I really appreciate it. Tell a friend about GrowCast. Best of luck in your grow, guys. May Wolfman watch over your grows, and may your yields be potent and bountiful. All right, everyone. Take care of yourselves out there. Happy growing. Bye-bye.